And here we are at lunchtime live painting. Thank you very much for joining me. And I'm continuing with these gum leaves. I've kind of got to go like that because I haven't got the camera right for the minute. Now, you've seen me start off these gum leaves. And as I was discussing with you yesterday, it just all looks pretty messy at this stage. And that's part of the process and it's all good. What I'm trying to create is background. Way back here is all pretty messy lines, pretty just schmuzzy, we'll say. And then in the actual leaves, I've got some sharp lines. So that's part of what makes them pop forward. And it's also the definite use of light that is going to make them pop forward. So today we'll be looking at adding a bit of background color. I'm not sure if we'll get to the leaves. I just noticed it said I've put painting gum leaves. I think I'm going to be painting the background for the gum leaves. But it's very important to make that distinction. So the way I paint the background, the way I use colors that are less intense in the background, these things will all be quite distinct to the way I work when I'm coming forward. Today I'll even use some different brushes when I'm on the background. So, hi Gordon, who else is there? Please say hello so I know who's there with us. Okay, so, and yeah, if you've got some questions, do let me know. You'll see in my email today that I also was talking about some of the trickiest things for artists. And the ones I mentioned were the, difficulty in starting the painting, difficulty in problem solving, like when it's not doing what you hoped it would do, the frustration, but what do you do about it? And also finishing a painting. These are three really tricky areas, and sometimes artists feel like they're alone in finding those difficulties or having a bank of unfinished work. But really, these are very commonly shared issues. And that was part of the driver for how I've designed How to Paint with Acrylics, is to bring you into a process that's removing the stress, the loss of confidence that can come with these tricky moments if you don't know how to deal with them. So once you work within a process, within a framework, your brain can relax more, just as I've been talking about the way the brain deals with these things, because it knows that there's a process to go with. And therefore the emotion doesn't come in so much, because those tricky bits are very often, it's not the technical difficulty often, it is the emotion that then takes over, and that's what overwhelms the brain in part in those tricky moments. So that's why have a really robust process that will keep you moving and also allow you to stop and start. Let's have a look at some color. So if you've looked at my lesson, Create the Colors You See, also color intensity, you'll see, can you see my colors that I use? I just can't get this mirror stuff working to do things in reverse. I use some fairly basic colors. I tend to use the Winsor & Newton, because Winsor & Newton are really the most rock solid in terms of looking the same color, wet or dry, and that is the biggest thing when you're painting. I use some different paints, and I literally did all this detail one day, and I came back in the morning and went, well, didn't I do that yesterday? I can't understand why those highlights aren't there. And it's because with some paints, there's a lot of filler as well as the pigment, and then the pigment isn't there and doesn't hold, isn't light fast, and you just don't want to waste your time like that. So you really do. That's why you invest in good paints, because they make things easier. And all the things that I'm going to talk to you about are things that I've learned from great artists to help make things run more smoothly so you can enjoy it more. So you'll see in that when I mix up using ultramarine blue, there we are, like that, ultramarine blue, and to get my greens I mix it with either cad yellow medium, and that gives what I'll call, particularly once you add in white and sometimes a little bit of black, that will give you gum leaves and the Southern Australian leaf colours. This is my own distinction. But if I mix in the cad yellow light, then I get these rich greens like of the rainforest. So, but if I go to the really light end, that's when I start getting the highlight greens. So in my background, what I have, and I'll just switch to using a larger brush. What I have in this background, I'll just sort of show you what I'm trying to achieve. This is like, imagine tea tree scrub, say. So just leafy bushes, light peeping through these areas here. There's more light peeping through the bushes. There's a tree in the background. These are sort of dense where they're doubled up, and then in parts there's a lot of light but still some trees. So I've still got the big stems in there, and underneath, can't see that much of underneath, but there's undergrowth and again light peeping through, and so I'm wanting to maintain that. Now because I've done that underpainting, and as Menchie asked yesterday, and it was a really good distinction, she said, is this what you'll be doing instead of the thumbnail sketch? But the sketch is the basics of maybe I'll do this. The underpainting has, even though this doesn't look like it's got very much detail, the underpainting is, I'm going through that and I've already made a lot of the decisions. I've got a lot more detail. I've really thought about where does that leaf join up. I really want to make sure things make sense always. You can get caught out if you've got a leaf and the leaf looks good but it doesn't join up somewhere when you go to look at the detail. So we need to make sure that we're not letting the composition be too loose. So a thumbnail sketch would just be the darks and the lights and the basic positioning, but you could completely change it. Whereas with the underpainting, it's really much more definite. This is what I'm going to be doing. Now, what it also allows me to do, now that I've just made this generalized green, is start in a very generalized way. I've already got the background of dark. So where I put this paint, that I can come back and change later, but I'm just wanting to start with the background to kind of define the leaves for you. And I'm doing this, I wouldn't always do this, it's kind of fun to do it in this, just use a colour to paint over with the greens. And it looks like it'll save you a heap of time, and sometimes it does, but sometimes you come back and do a lot of detail and it doesn't. So, but it's kind of fun, and it's clearer for a demonstration. I've got a little bit of green on my wood. I don't want that there, so I can just wipe that off. Because I went to the Impressionist exhibition and they use this great pink, I'm going to be using a lot of pink in the stems of this tree. So, and I also, that's a bit of a thing of mine, I paint round the edges. You don't have to do that. So I'm just blocking in the green background. And that's just going to nicely start. For you as the viewer, you'll start seeing where these leaves are going a bit more. And the fact that I've spent the time on the underpainting, deciding where my darks and lights are, is just allowing me to do this pretty quickly with a great big brush. How far do you go down there? Oh, hi Heather. Hello Kerry. Hi Amy. Thank you for coming everyone. Do ask me questions as I go. Obviously, I have to turn my back all the time to you when I'm painting. I don't like that, but there's no way around it at this stage. I'll devise a method one day. This is a very loose underpainting, perhaps looser than I would usually do. But I'm just being a bit speedy this week to be able to get the basics in a demo for you. I might put another leaf in there. And a bit more light, so a little bit more of the cad yellow light. Up here. And the light peeping through the trees. I might just switch over here to get a bit more of it over here. You can see, even though I'm being like totally broad in how I'm blocking these things in, I am trying still to make them connect to each other. So there's there's always got to be that element of making sense in what you're trying to create and connecting things up. So you see these light bits that peek through. It's so much easier because they connect up. So I'm going to come back with more color later, but it's just helping me see where the lights peep through. And where they peep through will follow a bit of a pattern, just as the real trees do. And there's some light under here too. So pretty quickly we start getting, I'll just get some water. We start getting, oh, just a big messy background by the look of it. My underpainting is just helping me tell that story. And it's easier to get the paint on the second time than it was the first. Well, I better look in case you've asked me a question. Is that a watery mix that still allows the underpainting to show through? Sorry, getting more paint. A watery mix. It is at this stage, but as I keep going, you can see this is testing my brain to answer the question and do all these things at once. But why not? The underpainting is the dark, so it's just light and dark. I'm adding a little bit of colour to the dark, but I want it to stay dark. So sometimes I will, so I'm losing a bit of dark here and I want to get it back. But I don't really want the underpainting, it to look like an underpainting is showing through. Does that help? And if I put my glasses on, I could see your question so much easier. But I guess that's another thing you can see here. I'm just not really worrying that much because I don't even have my glasses on. And maybe, you know, so I get to do fuzzy without actually having to fuzzy up at all. So this brush, you know, big brush is just allowing me to soften all of that a little bit more as the water soaks through a little. And I can see the light through and the underpainting, but there's going to be more colour on top of that. So the colour is going to be what dominates the actual underpainting. Oops. I'll just put a little bit of red in it when I want it to not get too intense. And that's the lesson that I have for you called Color Intensity. That's the one where I explain all about how to make colours less intense by using the colour that's opposite the colour wheel to the colour you're using. So I've got green, so if I want to make it less intense, then I add a little bit of red to it. So you can learn more about that in the video I have called Colour Intensity. And that, I don't know, can you hear the roaring noise in the background? Maybe you can't, maybe I should just leave it alone. It would be my neighbour's new motorbike with no muffler. It's better than his drum kit. Okay, so how far down can you see? Okay, let's just go back over here to a little bit more. And again, I go around the edges. That's just a thing for me because I feel like you walk into a room and you see the edge of a painting. So these thick edge canvases were developed so that you didn't have to frame your painting. So a good thick, 2.5, 3 centimeters, inch and a half. And but what it does when you walk into a room, if you just see the edge, to me, it takes your eye around to the front. So I like to continue the story around the edge because I think that's just what might catch you and bring you into looking at the painting. But I did go and join a group for a little while where this just so distressed the guy that ran this painting group. The fact that I would do that, you can't do that. That's just, this is a 2-dimensional. You're trying to make it 3-dimensional. And of course I am. So there's things that if you have formal art training become these, definitive rules and you can't do it differently than that. So we're not going to worry about any of those. We only do it if it makes sense and it makes life easier. Then it's on our list big time. So just continuing this this use of a little bit of light, and I'm going to add some sky color up there. So and I'm just enjoying that big brush. Check that you haven't asked me a question. Oh, you asked me questions. Now I dropped my glasses. Hang on. Gary, I love the depth of this already. I've seen this technique of the full underpainting done in oils, but never acrylic. Cool. Good. And I would do this definitely with a portrait, but I do it with everything. Yeah, okay, thanks Heather, I'm with you. Yeah, I have to physically move the comments to see, so I'll just keep having a go, making it all come together. So I think I want even more light over here. So I'm just going to hop in here just a little bit more. I'm just going to make that a little bit more solid. But understand that, you know, when you look at it and it doesn't make sense yet, that's okay. It doesn't have to make sense yet to you. But it does have to make sense to me at this stage, and it does. So I'm just continuing this where the sun is peeping through. And it's giving us some form to what's going to happen with the leaves. I've got a bit of room here. Take a little bit of blue. We've just got the sky peeking through. But it's got to be sort of in a band. It's got to, you know, make sense in some way for you to read it as sky. And we'll just, you know, it's marking where we'll make sure that we have the right bit of sky. And I'm going to go a bit more blue. And then lighten it in the center. Oh, can you really see the top? Maybe you can't even see what I'm doing. God. Let's just make sure there. Yes. The color of the camera is just not as bright at all as what's happening, but I hope you can see enough. Now, what I'm going to do is just a little bit more on leaves before, on background leaves before tomorrow. And then tomorrow I will actually make these, now that they're, well, do they look a little bit more confused with the background to you now? Or, how can I be in there? Do they look more part of the background, or are the leaves popping forward for you? Because it's hard for me to see the way you're seeing the colour. Let me get back here. Okay, just by definition of them being in the black and white, which is a different, cooler tone, you know, they look different than the leaves in that sense. But if you've got any further questions between now and tomorrow, but you can see what I've done is I am making sure that we're making the point that the underpainting is distinctly different, and it was just of light and dark. And then the point that the background, I'm painting the background distinctly differently again. So I'm using a less intense kind of green. The leaves themselves are what's called a glaucous color. So that these are blue silvery leaves. So you'll see those tomorrow and how that distinctly is so different than what's happening in the background. So come back and join me tomorrow. I will continue with these leaves and make them pop out at you. If you've got any questions, just ask me now before we go. There's a little delay from when your question gets written to when I see it, so I'll just hang on for a tick. Yeah, I think you can see the little teensy bit of sky I'm doing. Okay, they look great. Looking lovely, that's good. Thank you very much. Thanks for talking with me while we do this. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And you can watch these silvery blue leaves start to turn in the sun and pop out of the painting. Okay, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember, those things that are difficult for artists, things like starting, problem solving and stopping, and how to paint with acrylics, that's what we're all about. We're there to make that easier so you don't lose confidence, and so you know that you've got a process that can take you through that and get to a beautiful painting. So my interest is in you getting things on your wall done and feeling good about them. So please make sure you've liked my page, my YouTube channel, and share the my little ad for how to paint with acrylics. And that would really be a great help for me. If you can't join us this time, maybe someone you know can, and that would be a great help. So if you've enjoyed what I've been doing for the last week or so, that would really be great if you could help me. So thank you. See you tomorrow. See you, Kerry.